It, I love the school, and I like being able to go out back to the door and such, but the room itself is just too small. Amazing things happen every year. The kids come in, they're fourth grade, and they're this big, but they keep growing. So this part of the year, they're already too big for the room, and in 9 months, they really are barely going to fit. So when we're trying to do morning meetings, there's no room for it. And the read aloud, kids are kind of down in between the columns of the desks, and so that sort of thing alone is too much. But there's really no space to have a science class, for instance. Things are, the desks are wet and the things are getting ruined. So space is really an issue in here.
What about projects or inventions or anything that they do? What do you do when that occurs, or do you just avoid doing projects?
We do the best, and I don't avoid it because it's not fair for the kids, and so we make a mess. We make a mess and we clean up a mess all the time. And again, I think it's not a great opportunity. It's not a great way to have the whole thing set up. But yeah, so we do our projects in here, but we do them on top of the desks. There's nowhere else to go. I've got a table that I work with the kids at math time, and we clear that off at times as well. And a table over here that the teaching assistant uses, and we clear that off when we have to. But we sort of make do. It's just not optimal.
Well, we have several of us that share the same space. So it's finding a quiet space that's workable. Sometimes we share the same actual spot. Sometimes we have a group that's a little bit too large for the space we have. When we do assessments, it's particularly difficult when we do our baseline assessments in September. And then again mid-year in the spring to get a quiet spot for students to use, because there may be other students discussing. We have Title I reading, Title I math, and some math enrichment in the same space. Sometimes we think outside the box. We use the corridors, we use the corner of classrooms. Sometimes if there's a class at gym, we'll sneak in that room for a little bit just to find an empty space to work with.
What are some of the challenges you face here in the space at Winthrop?
Well, we work really hard schedule-wise to try to avoid conflicts, but there's this side of the trailer which is for general music, and then there's a small compartment back there. So often, if I have a class going on, Jamie will have lessons. Last year, because of space, we couldn't be in the cafeteria for chorus, so I actually had 50-something kids in this room for chorus, while Jamie had instrument lessons going on
Very
next
challenging.
door.
Yeah, it's quite loud. I mean, the band instruments in an enclosed space with a low ceiling is hard for them too, in terms of their distractibility factor, in terms of their being able to hear what I'm saying to them too. And then very often we'd have a confidential meeting going on and band going on in here, so they probably couldn't hear what they were trying to say next door either, with trumpets
Same
and saxophones.
Thing. Yeah, when we have music class on a couple days a week, they have special education meetings going on next door while we're in here.
Now, I understand too that you hold some of your classes in the cafeteria area, and that it has some difficulties as well.
Yeah, that can be. There's a curtain which is visually nice to cut off some distractions, but it doesn't do much in terms, again, if the lunch is going on in the cafeteria and there's a band rehearsal going on stage.
Or PE going on the other side of the curtain.
Right. We've had kids break into tears over it. I think just the noise factor, So.
Besides teaching, what are the other challenges that you have here?
Well, in general, the building is obsolete, and so when you start to look at those outdated features, they show up in the kitchen area, in the equipment and the appliances that are there. They show up in places like the bathrooms, where they're no longer ADA compliant. So from an accessibility point of view, thresholds, door thresholds, things like that, totally puts us in a different frame. And nowadays what happens, the therapies are far more extensive than we ever did in the past. So there's simply no place for privacy. So in a situation where there might be maladaptive behavior or a specialized instructional piece, there's no privacy. We actually do a lot of those services in the most distractible spaces, so a little counterintuitive.
Sure. What are we trying to accomplish here?
Well, Winthrop prides itself on being a community school, and that means availability and accessibility for our purpose of education, but for the entire community. We saw that commitment and that outpouring on the playground and felt really good that it was 100% ADA compliant, and that was part of the driving force behind our changes there. So it's the end game really is a building that the community can use and we can use for all the right types of instruction for any child who shows up at our door.